First of all, I guess the big question is, how does Spirit going out of business impact the airline industry overall? What's the biggest thing we're going to see coming out of this?
Well, I think two things. In the short term, I think everyone's scrambling to say, okay, how do we take care of those customers, right? And how do customers get their money back? And they can go to the Spirit website to get their money back. And then you have folks like United Airlines, Southwest, JetBlue, Delta, American. They're all providing capitated rates. So they want to get those customers taken care of that have plans over the next month. How do the employees get taken care of? They also get preferential treatment with all the existing airlines in terms of new jobs and new opportunities there. And then in the long term, it's really about making sure that that the airspace as a whole, which America has the strongest airspace in the country, we're rebuilding our air traffic control system. That again, that is robust for the customer. And I mean, not to go too far afield, but we've had 2 government shutdowns, right? We saw the TSA lines because Congress couldn't get their act together. We saw the air traffic controllers not getting paid for 6, 7, 8 weeks back in the fall. That system has to work as well to make sure that all these other pieces move. And unfortunately, there's a lesson here, right? So when the merger was going to happen between JetBlue and Spirit, that would have put almost $4 billion into Spirit. And the Biden administration crushed it, and they got political with it. And that was, again, hopefully the lesson there is when a business comes calling, look at the financials, look at the business case, look at how it's going to affect the customers, and make your decision based on that, not on politics. So some lessons learned. I think the industry is responding very well. We just want to make sure that folks feel comfortable preparing for their summer.
Governor, let me ask you about what might happen next. And there's been speculation that other ultra-low-cost airlines are going to be in a pinch as well. Obviously, the Spirit situation was unique in many ways. You had the Transportation Secretary yesterday batting down calls for further bailouts or the need for bailouts. And it's something that your group has opposed as well. I'll read a bit from a statement that you all released. Government intervention on behalf of those airlines would punish other airlines that have engaged in self-help in order to deal with increased costs, reward airlines who haven't made those tough decisions. That is not a level playing field. So we see your opposition there to these government bailouts. Are you worried about the industry broadly, especially at that lower range of fares?
No, look, competition works, right? And so when we have a lot of different carriers there, it's Frontier, it's Sun Country, it's Arvelo. Breeze is actually a new entrant there. Breeze is a very interesting airline with a lot of opportunities. They don't use kind of the primary airports. They use some of the secondary airports, providing a low-cost option for those customers. So look, if the Breezes of the world and some of these others weren't doing okay, I think you could make that case. But there has to be competition at that level, right? And those models can't be older fashion type models. They have to compete in this new world. Now, again, a lot of these problems financially were happening long before the fuel crisis and the jet fuel crisis of the last couple months. I mean, Spirit was in trouble years and years ago, so it's not a function of that. But when you have the high fuel costs, these massive new labor costs, I mean, right now the industry as a whole has about a 4 to 5% profit margin. That's it, 4 to 5%, because they've kept their costs so low for the customer. So you'll see some of those move a little bit. They have a lot of options now that they didn't have before. So as a customer, you can get that basic economy seat super cheap, even on the Deltas and Uniteds and Americans. You can choose to whether you want to pay for baggage. You can choose for that upgrade or that extra legroom. So they're giving the customer, the new models give the customer a lot more flexibility in designing their product and their price point, and everyone has to kind of come along with that. So I think it's just a faction of getting those ultra low-cost carriers to maybe update their models a little bit. But overall, the industry is very strong. There's a lot of opportunity for customers out there. So yeah, you're gonna have ebbs and flows here with different carriers. But at the end of the day, the customer is going to win out.
But let me ask you, because I know that for a lot of airlines, a lot of the bigger airlines, a lot of those economy seats they're flying at a loss. Where they're really making money is in the front of the plane, and that's why we're seeing additions of higher cost seats, business class, economy plus, things like that. So when you're getting the squeeze on these cheaper airlines, is it really fair to say that these other airlines are going to pick up the slack and add more of these cheaper seats because they're not making money off of them?
Well, again, they have to look at what their customers are looking for, what the type of product is, and so they have the ability to add higher-end product. And again, their higher-end product might look a little different than some of the other carriers' products, but that product has to kind of fit the model of what they're doing. Now, yes, the larger carriers basically only make money going internationally. I mean, even domestically, some of the higher-end seats make a little bit of money. All the economy seats effectively can lose a bit of money. So again, you have to look at your product that you're placing. You can't just provide the same products that you were doing back in 2016, 2017, 2018. You have to update those models. And for the carriers that didn't update, that kind of stayed with the old-fashioned way, yeah, they're probably suffering a little more. Everybody's moving forward and kind of looking at that product spectrum.
I'd like to ask you about the interface between airlines and the administration. Play a bit of sound here from Sean Duffy, the Transportation Secretary, who gave a news conference yesterday at Newark Liberty International Airport. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Now, you've heard that other airlines have talked about requesting a $2.5 billion bailout. I am in continual contact, and my team is in contact with all the CEOs of the airlines. I would say that at this point, I don't think it's necessary. They do have access to cash. If they want to come to the U.S. government, we would be a lender of last resort. If they can find dollars in the private markets, I think that's better for them.
Governor, I'd love your reaction to that. I think of you as a traditional Republican, New Hampshire Republican, New England Republican, and you hear him talk about the government being a lender of last resort to these airlines. Obviously, this conversation about bailouts, the continued conversations between the administration and executives as well. How do you feel about that? Are you comfortable with the government playing this role at a time when we have seen the administration taking a stake in many private companies?
Yeah, well, I think Secretary Duffy is spot on. He's saying, look, the government isn't here just to bail everybody out when a business needs money, right? If there was a crisis situation, I mean, that's why he kind of used the term lender of last resort. But it isn't just the government should be a lender there. If there are extenuating circumstances or something like that, what he's really referring to is, yeah, Spirit came for a bailout, which made no financial sense whatsoever because they had no assets, they had massive amounts of debt. And then all the other carriers, just the low-cost guys, just said, oh, yeah, by the way, how about we get $2.5 billion too? Even when some of them didn't need it. It really didn't make a lot of sense. It was more of an opportunity, as the Secretary pointed out, than a real need into the industry. So, no, I'm not a big believer of these bailouts by any means. I think President Trump deserves some credit for trying with Spirit. I mean, he said, let's take a real look at it. Let's see how we make sure the customers and the employees are taken care of. But it made no financial sense because its assets had been so gutted. They didn't even own their own planes, right? They had billions and billions of debt, and they had virtually no assets to back it up. So, again, I give the president credit for trying and the administration at least taking a look. But to Secretary Duffy's point, the government just isn't here to save your business when you have a bad business model. Save something that doesn't have real value or isn't part of that national strategic need that might be out there. So, no, it's whenever the government gets involved, you better be, again, really, 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 really cautious. And there better be a real
was that, sir? That was a lot of relays. Okay, but more seriously.
I'm being a little bit of the politician there because, yeah, these bailouts, I mean, it's a domino effect. When does it stop, right, at that point? So, no, businesses need to update and advance their models, and a lot of the low-cost carriers have done that for their customers. I think it's great. They're looking at maybe trying a little more international. They're looking at trying to upgrade the front of their planes. Look what Southwest just did, right? Southwest now has the assigned seating, the upgrades. They're doing phenomenal over there. United Airlines has made, and Delta have made some huge advances. American as well. So everyone's adapting. Everyone's modifying what they provide based on the needs of the business, and that's the way business should work, right? That's the way competition works. When the Biden administration got involved and said, "Oh no, we're not going to help. We're not going to let a merger take place, a private merger take place for competition," they just didn't even try to look at the business case model and understand what the need was, right? They weren't asking the government for money. They were just asking the government for permission to let businesses do what they do best. And you know, a typical case of the government thinking they're smarter than everybody else, but they were dead wrong on this. And, you know, you saw that Spirit customer there. She's nervous. You know, the airline she used to use is now gone because bad government got involved. So, look, the good news is there's a lot of other carriers out there. There's a lot of opportunities out there, low cost, higher end, international. There's a lot of product there for folks to dive into. And I think what these airlines are doing right now, today, for those Spirit customers with their capped rates is a huge opportunity. I think United has, just yesterday, United did 27,000 Spirit customers. Southwest did over 20,000. Move those customers seamlessly over in less than a day to their carriers to make sure that those folks are taken care of at a limited rate. So I think everyone's pitching in.
All right, Governor, before we let you go, you talked about these airlines needing to adapt their business models. One thing it is hard to adapt to or for is the current price of oil and fuel. And that's really was the nail in the coffin, it seems like, for Spirit and could cause trouble for a lot of these other airlines. How long can they sustain this current pricing, and what do they do if it doesn't go down by the end of the year?
Sure. So I got to be clear. The fuel price was not the death nail of Spirit. It had nothing to do with it.
The CEO did say it was. In his statement, he did say it was. It was part of it. I mean, he talked about the merger and the predicament of the company, but he did say in his statement that fuel prices were a compounding factor.
I'm just telling you, then they wouldn't have been filing for bankruptcy 2 years ago, right? I mean, they were in a death spiral of losing their assets. The labor costs, the supply chain issues post-COVID. I mean, there's a lot of other, to your point, there's a lot of costs bearing down on this industry that for the most part, the airlines just kind of eat it. They lose profit on it because they're trying to provide that competitive aspect for the customer. Will we see prices move a little bit? Yeah, maybe 5 or 6 or 7%, but not like the doubling of prices that would probably justify the doubling and tripling of fuel costs of jet fuel that we're seeing out there. So what happens kind of in the short term? The airlines can withstand this, at least for 3 or 4 months. As you know, as oil prices go up, they go down. When they finally start going down, they're going to go down slowly, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like if the Strait of Hormuz open tomorrow, everything comes back to normal. It is going to take some time, both in the trucking industry, the airline industry, pretty much anybody that uses fuel in any way. It's going to take some time to get back to some normalcy on that. But again, the airlines are resilient, right? They're willing to eat a lot of that cost. They're willing to always provide a better product for their customer. And again, the customers have so many other choices out there between the airlines themselves that there is a lot of variability that allows the customer to make good financial decisions.